Welcome to Internet Safety, hosted by Donna Rice Hughes. Over the next hour, you'll learn practical and crucial tips on how to keep your loved ones safe in the digital world. Now, here is Donna.
Hello, thank you to everyone for joining this week's podcast, Internet Safety with Donna Rice Hughes, and I am your host, and my name is Donna. So we have got a really powerful show lined up for you today. Our topic is preventing online crimes against kids from a law enforcement perspective. Parents, you know this already. It's dark out there. It's really dark for our kids. Anywhere a child is connected to the internet is where sexual predators, traffickers, pornographers, sextortionists are grooming our kids. Law enforcement is often underfunded and undermanned. Parents, we know you're overwhelmed, and we've got a serious war on children, and that's what we're going to be talking about. The first part of our show is going to be a bit dark, but we have to tell you the truth of what is happening so that we can inform you, so that you understand that your child is not immune from any of these risks and dangers that we're going to be talking about. And then the second part of our show, we're going to be talking about how to prevent all of this. So there's hope. So I want you to be encouraged and stay tuned for the second half, because that's where we're going to educate and equip and empower you to be the first line of defense. We have a very special guest with us, Special Agent Courtney Goode. Special Agent Goode joined the Department of Virginia State Police in 2012. In 2019, she joined the Virginia State Police and was moved up to the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. She then transferred to the Northern Virginia, D.C. Crimes Against Children's Task Force. Special Agent Goode has a passion for identifying those who prey on children and bringing those perpetrators to justice. Additionally, she does a lot of internet safety trainings and educates and equips parents on how to protect their kids. So, Special Agent Goode, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Donna. I appreciate it.
I know that this is a passion for you. We've done a couple of town halls already together with the Attorney General of Virginia, and I was just so moved by your energy, your passion, and your knowledge of what's happening out there. Can you explain to our audience what an ICAC is and what an ICAC does?
Absolutely. So basically, it's very simple. And ICAC stands for Internet Crimes Against Children. And we are all over the country. In the state of Virginia, there's two, but I am on the DC Northern Virginia Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And all it is your federal law enforcement, your state law enforcement like myself, and your local coming together. And we become one big family to go up against these predators that are trying to come against our children.
Thank you. That was, I love that. That was really, really good. And the ICACs were formed a number of years ago, right? Right, really at the beginning of the internet. So government saw the problem and created this whole ICAC effort, right?
Absolutely. Ours was created in November of 2004, and we've been, leading the charge ever since. And it is definitely something that is very close and near and dear to my heart to make sure we're keeping these kids safe.
Well, great. Thank you. And you're doing a great job. So we're going to start about one of the bigger issues, which has been a growing issue for a long time. And this is child pornography, which we're now calling child sex abuse material nationally, because of just really an attempt to change the legal term to what is actually happening. Because when a child is being sexually abused and exploited and harmed, and a video and an image is being taken of that abuse, it is child sex abuse material. So when you hear us talk about CSAM, everybody out there, that's what we're talking about. So Courtney, how bad is it?
It's really bad. It's something that is more prevalent, especially since we had the pandemic. Our task force alone before the pandemic, we were getting maybe up to the thousands. But now we're on track this year to reach 10,000. So it's just something that we're being bombarded with. And the way that we're getting these notifications is through cyber tips. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they are like the clearinghouse of getting these cyber tips. And they push these cyber tips out all across the world, but they will push them out to our task force here in Virginia. And then from there, we're required to then push it out to whatever jurisdiction, which is why it's so important for us to have those connections and that family with all the different local and federal law enforcement. And so it's just progressing. And it's something that I think for us, we're doing a lot of preventative measures to educate children and their parents and their guardians so that they can be more safe when they're in these spaces online.
Right. So let's just for our audience, the cyber tip line just recently reported that they received 36.2 million reports of suspected child sexual exploitation. In those reports, there were more than 105 million images and videos and other files of children or suspected children of being sexually abused and captured in these videos and in these photographs. So it's a huge problem. It's a growing problem. I've heard numbers in the billions and billions and billions worldwide. This crime it's a crime in the United States of America and around the world, but it's a growing crime, isn't it, Courtney?
It is. It is. And the stats don't lie.
No, the stats don't lie. And we're going to talk about why it's growing and everything else. But I want to talk a little bit more, too, about what other crimes fall under online exploitation and abuse. This is a recent statistic as well from the Internet Watch Foundation, which is really, this is over in Europe, the UK. But they have found that younger and younger children are being targeted on a, quote, an industrial scale by internet groomers. In 2021, there was a threefold increase in imagery showing 7 to 10-year-olds. Again, this is what we refer to as CSAM, or child sex abuse material.
Oh, absolutely. And so you are looking at child solicitation, you're looking at self-produced material and sextortion. And so it's all there. Yep.
So that all falls under that. So let's here's just one more stat, and then we're going to break down what you just said. Over the past 15 years, this type of content has increased by 422%. That's according to the Federal Sentencing Bureau in the United States of America in 2021. All right, so we've talked about child sex abuse material. What you just mentioned a term, and we want to explain it to our audience. What is self-produced content?
Self-produced content is something when a child is doing either a video or a still image of themselves in a lascivious manner, where they're showing parts of their privates, whether it's their breasts, their butt. And so when they're taking those images and then sharing them online, we consider that to be self-production.
Right. And we're seeing this happening on a large scale. I'm going to jump to sexting real quick, because this is some of the ways this content is getting out there. Right, Courtney?
Yes, it is. And before you get to that point, I just want to share that I even had a case in real time where I had a 6-year-old who self-produced images of her vagina on YouTube because she thought it was very interesting to see, and she hadn't had that conversation about her anatomy. So when she saw it, she was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to share it with my friends. And so she posted it, and that's how it became one of my cases, because a cyber tip was then initiated and I had to do the investigation.
Wow.
So that's just a good example of how young these children are self-producing.
And isn't that interesting? Now, this is the kind of content that would be a sexual predator or a trafficker's dream come true, right? They didn't even have to groom this child to do this. She just did it out of curiosity. She had a camera, she had a webcam or whatever she had, a smartphone. She did this and she knew how to post onto YouTube.
Absolutely. This is their dream. And just walking it back, the parents weren't even aware because she was with her grandma when she was taking this imagery and uploading this material online. And so it's really important for parents and guardians and anyone who's actually taking care of a child to know what they're doing. And hopefully through this podcast, they will learn so much more on how to protect their kids from these types of behaviors online.
Right. And so this is the case of what we would just call, voluntary when a kid does this. And we're seeing, of course, the trend of sexting which is really by a lot of preteens and teens considered a rite of passage, right? Everybody's doing it. 1 in 5 girls, 1 in 10 boys. You're interested in a guy. I hear this from moms all the time. This girl just sent a nude picture of herself to my 13-year-old,
Right.
and to get their attention. Now, of course, these kids are seeing a lot of hardcore porn online. They often imitate what they see. Girls want to be cute and sexy. They want to attract the attention of the boys. Boys are also doing the same thing, right, Courtney?
They absolutely are. And I think the kids these days like to call it a thirst trap when they're posting this imagery. And it seems cool. They're trying to emulate what certain stars are doing. And it's more mature content. And they don't know what it could lead to. And they don't recognize that once they put it out, they can't get it back. And I
Right.
think that when it comes to this, it's very important to have those conversations at a younger age so that they can understand the importance of protecting themselves and not exploiting themselves with this material.
Right. And one of the sayings that we've been talking about for so long is once something's online, there are no take backs. So
Mm.
think before you post. And going back to the case of the young child, 6-year-old, I think she was, um, this whole idea of that we used to talk about, and we still do, good touch, bad touch, that kind of thing. What's private? Do I need to keep private all the time? That not only can no one touch, but no one can see. Let's just talk about that for a minute here and having these conversations early with these kids, because I mean, this is a stunning case that you just told me about.
Yeah, I think parents they don't think that they need to talk to their kids about this at that young age. Everybody thinks about teenagers. And so I try to tell them that if you start, the earlier you start, the more it becomes something that their children get used to talking about, and they don't want to stick their head in the sand when you're having the talk. And so it's a conversation that has to be continuous. It's a conversation that you start with just maybe identifying what these body parts are. And for the families that are uncomfortable with having these conversations, the reason why it's very important on a law enforcement standpoint is if something were to happen to your child, like if something happened to the 6-year-old and she was then abused in a sexual manner, we would need her to identify the parts that were touched. And if she's using code names like my flower or my kitty cat, instead of saying what her anatomy is, then it makes it really hard when it goes to court to prosecute those cases because they want to know, was the touching inside or outside? Was it your anus or was it your vagina? They want to know these things. And so the earlier you kind of start talking to your children about the anatomy and make them more comfortable with being able to have that conversation with a trusted adult, because it always should be a trusted adult, the better off and the more safe we can keep them.
That's such a great point. And now with kids getting online earlier and earlier and earlier, we're going to talk about this in the next section. But they're being exposed to things that they didn't used to be exposed to, right? Online, they can see pornography. They can see hardcore pornography. I mean, our whole culture has become sexualized. So I know you're seeing this in your work. I'm seeing it in mine as well. They're becoming much more sexually curious at much younger ages, which really sets them up for being groomed and falling into these traps. Now, when we're talking about self-produced content, whether it's through sexting or something like with this little 6-year-old, once that's out there, that can get into the hands of a trafficker and a sexual predator or a pedophile, right?
It absolutely can, because again, once it's out there, you can't get it back, and it can be screenshot, it can be saved and downloaded and then re-uploaded. And so that is the problem when these images are being put out there.
So let's move to live streamed abuse or virtual real-time molestation. I heard about the first case of this when it was probably about 1998 when I got a phone call from a parent whose child went to a slumber party, and it turned out the father, and where these little girls were having their slumber party, was doing live stream virtual abuse, putting up a camera, having other pedophiles watch as he abused these girls. So this is a thing. This is a growing trend. Here's a study here of 2018 of over 2,000 files captured from live streaming found that 98% of the victims were under age 13. Why do you think we're seeing this kind of a crime expand? Isn't it just a new way for predators to, abuse a child?
I think that it's easy, right? Because everybody's online, and it's that connection that they're able to make. So a lot of these things are happening. The abusers are actually overseas, and they can pay someone in, the United States to provide content that is, completely inappropriate, and vice versa, right? And so we even have folks from other states when we're doing these investigations that are preying on children here in Virginia. And again, vice versa. It's just the fact that it's so easy to get online and open up a device and then reach out and touch so many different people. And when it comes to our children, if they don't have that knowledge not to talk to these folks online, then they're very easy targets to be exploited.
You're exactly right. So let's talk about the process of grooming. You know what grooming is? I know what grooming is. Well, a lot of parents don't know what grooming is, and kids don't know what grooming is. So let's walk our audience through grooming, because it's important that parents understand so they can help teach their kids. And you can also help teach your kids through going to resources like we have at Enough is Enough that describes this. But Courtney, I want you to walk through this process.
Right. So grooming is a process where an individual or even a group will use manipulation tactics to exploit the child. And it usually involves building a relationship with them, much like we already build relationships with our children. And so it can start these days. We see it on a gaming app. So I always tell guardians, when your child's on a gaming app, look at those messages, because that's where it starts, right? It's a good job on that kill, or good job on whatever it is that they're playing, and then it moves on to a gradual sexual relationship. It starts about talking about, well, do you know, they might even ask the question, do you know what a penis is? Or they might make a funny statement about their anatomy to the child, and the child's like, what is that? And then they explain it. And so they use those tactics to then lure the kid into this type of overtly sexual abusive relationship. And so what they'll do is, once they have basically got the child on the hook per se, they'll then move them off of that application to another application, more like a Kick or maybe Twitch or something else, where they can chat with them and then continue to groom them. And so when maybe the child gets in trouble, they'll then, whenever they get their device back, say, oh yeah, my parent is the same way, even though they're 42 and they're an adult, they're still pretending to be childlike and have those childlike situations. So then the child believes that somebody actually understands me, somebody gets it, somebody is there for me, when when I'm having a problem, I can be my real self. I can say curse words and not get in trouble. All the things that I can't do around my parents and my guardians. And so what they'll do is they'll do all that. And then eventually they'll start sending gifts, right? And so how easy is it to send something from Amazon Prime or to Cash App someone or to Venmo someone? And so another telltale sign for parents and guardians out there is to check who are they getting this cash from? Or if they're on a game, maybe they'll give them extra lives or something like that. So you need to kind of look into that. And that could also clue you in if your child is being groomed by someone.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm going to just kind of cover that in some easy steps. They make contact with the child. They do this online. Grooming can happen offline too, by the way. We're talking about online grooming, where they build a camaraderie. They can do it through game, through social media, through a text. However, typically they will start by pretending to be a kid themselves, or pretending to be someone they're not. Right, Courtney? They don't say, "Hi, I'm a convicted sex felon, and I've been, I want to bring you into a sexual encounter." No, they build that friendship, they build that relationship, they start to isolate that child, and they get them into a sexual situation. It may continue online, or it may move into an offline sexual encounter. Correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How has AI made this worse, and what is a deep fake?
Right. So AI has absolutely taken us by storm because it is material that is starting to just look so real, and it's starting to normalize the behavior and increase the appetite for sexual abuse material. It's almost like fast food for sexual abuse material because you can literally tell it to do anything, and it really hurts us for law enforcement officers to do these investigations because we're thinking it's a real child. And even though it's illegal activity, we're trying to go and rescue this child. So it can definitely exhaust our efforts and our resources. And then also it's just continue to grow. So it's when they are altering the audio, the video, the media of something that looks to be authentic, but it's actually fake. And it is created in so many different methods where they can, take over somebody's voice or make their a prom picture, turn it into somebody being nude. So it's something where they do that, but the children are believing that this is a real image. So even though they know maybe it's a picture of them, they know it's not them, it looks so much like them, it causes them to even think, well, maybe it is me. And then that is how they are able to then blackmail and start spreading disinformation, and the harassment will start around that because now they have something over that child and they'll use it to gain whatever they're trying to get at the time.
Well, that's fascinating that they're using these deep fakes of a child when a child didn't even do anything. Now, we also know one of the fastest growing crimes against kids is sextortion, right? And we're just going to briefly touch on this because we covered it in last week's broadcast. But this is when a kid is, and it's usually a preteen, and more often boys than girls, where a predator or sextortionist befriends them to pretends to be someone of the opposite sex, gets them into an online sexual situation or sexting situation where that kid, that teen, sends an image voluntarily to someone they think that they might be interested in sexually. As soon as that sextortionist gets that image, they go, aha, I'm not really this cute 14-year-old girl. I want your money, send me $5,000, etc. And then now you've got it happening this way as well, right?
Absolutely, because it's the term. They're taking sextortion and they're basically making sexual and extortion and combining it together, right? And so they're just using all these different means to coerce and manipulate these children to then continue to feed their addiction. And whether it be some of these folks, they're not even into sexual abuse material. They just want the financial gain from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's really powerful when it comes to doing these investigations, is we have to find the money trail, but also we're having to provide services for these families that are literally just it's a scam, and so they're being scammed out of their private images. So,
well, it's, we're going to touch really quickly on social media too. This is huge. We know that the Surgeon General this year came out with a warning saying that social media is causing a profound risk of mental harm to kids as well as other safety risks. But for the purposes of our podcast today, Courtney, sexual predators, traffickers are using social media, aren't they? And kids are talking to strangers voluntarily. They know they're strangers and they're still talking to them.
They are, because wherever the children are, that's where the predators are going to congregate. That's why it's so important for us to keep our kids safe online.
Yeah, absolutely. So what apps do you find in your work are the most problematic?
Well, according to NCMEC right now, for online enticement, it is your Snapchat and TikTok. They're getting the highest amount of cyber tips at this time.
Wow.
And any app that has a chatting feature is going to be an area for concern for parents and guardians.
So those are two apps that at Enough is Enough, we just say, you know what, why let your kids use them? Just don't. Snapchat, TikTok, there's some more. We're going to talk about this in the safety section. But let's go to cyberbullying. How prevalent is it? Are you seeing a lot of cases? And what are the warning signs that a parent should be aware of that their kid's being bullied? And it can be bullied, obviously, from another kid at school.
Absolutely. So as I go and talk to kids at these schools, I am finding that bullying is something that is just happening in person and online. And so the one thing that I always tell them is, if somebody is bullying someone online, don't be a bystander, right? Like, make sure that if you see something, you can always report it on that app. You can always tell a trusted adult, and you can always stand up for your friend and encourage your friend to block that person, right? Mm-hmm. Because you don't have to hear the noise. And a lot of times our kids, they just don't know that they can, say no, or they can, get off that platform. They don't have to stand there and take that abuse. And so some of the warning signs that I see is just, the child starts to withdraw. They're no longer interested in doing things with their family and friends. Their self-esteem gets so low, and it's just like a sudden change in their behavior. Like, they'll start minimizing stuff when people are around to try to hide it. And so these are just some things that will happen because they just feel like, as kids, they have to hold on to all that by themselves, and they don't know that they can get help when they're dealing with this online bullying.
And, some of these warning signs, Courtney, that you talked about, being secretive, minimizing their screen, withdrawing, depression, changes in the way they dress, and are also warning signs of being groomed. They're warning signs of being sexualized. They're warning signs of being trafficked online. A lot of this trafficking can happen online. We know that about 55% of kids are actually meeting their trafficker online, and a trafficker is really just a subset of a sexual predator. It's just that a trafficker is now going to move that child into a commercial sex act or sex trade, right? Can you just speak to trafficking?
Oh, absolutely. I just want to say that this is one of the only any type of child sexual abuse crime is one of the only crimes where I say that parents are the first line of defense. Anything else, you would just say, hey, call law enforcement. But parents know when their child is not acting how they normally do. They know what their baseline is. And so it's really important to tap into that as parents and guardians. And so for my agency, we just stood up a whole new division for human trafficking just to combat this, because it's definitely becoming more prevalent. And again, all these crimes these days have some type of digital social media nexus. And so we're trying to prepare ourselves to be able to, make the streets a little bit more safer. But it's definitely tough.
Well, we're gonna take a quick break here, but I want to make the point to everyone listening, whether you're a parent, you're a grandparent, you're an aunt, or your uncle, we all have a young person in our lives that's on the internet. And to just say this, your kid's not immune. That child in your life is not immune to any of this. They can be a good, smart kid, be on top of it, be an athlete, not even be interested in the opposite sex. They can fall into any of these traps because the people that are seeking to hurt them are good and they are better than the kids and they're smarter than oftentimes the parents. So we're going to take a 2-minute break. And on the other side of the break, we're going to come back and help you understand what you need to do to be that first line of defense. And then, Courtney, we're also going to talk about what is law enforcement doing? How do you report these crimes? How do you save the evidence? And so we've got a lot more to talk about. So please join us on the other side of this 2-minute break. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's podcast of Internet Safety. I'm your host, Donna Rice Hughes, and we have with us Special Agent Goode, who is working at the Northern Virginia, D.C. Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force, and she is an expert. Courtney, we talked about a lot of the dangers in the beginning, in the first part of our time together. I want to talk about how does law enforcement catch these criminals that are preying on our kids online? What do you do? What do you need to know? How do you get these guys and bring them to justice?
Absolutely, Donna. Well, one of the things that we're doing is we have to go into those spaces too. So we have some folks that are doing the undercover chat to try to talk to them and get them off of these apps that they shouldn't be trying to solicitate our children on. And then the other things that we're trying to do is we're trying to do prevention with families and the children as well. We do get a lot of cases, as we mentioned in the last segment, about the cyber tips. So that is another way we start or initiate our investigations. But a lot of it, we're trying to move to more of a preventative approach as well. And so some of the things that we're doing is just encouraging parents, like we're doing right now, just talking about this issue. And one of the fun conversation starters that I always encourage guardians to use with their children is to open up their own social media and say, hey, like, look at my followers and let me see who's following you. Who are your friends? And when you kind of start that conversation, it really helps to just open up that window to talk about those things.
And that's so good. It's so important for parents to start these conversations early. We're going to talk about when do you even let your kids online, but I want to save that for just a little bit later. But I want to come back to the cyber tip line. So how can a parent or a teacher or a guardian, if they see something suspicious, where do they call first? Where does the cyber tip line get their reports and how important are they?
Okay, that's a really good question, Donna. And, parents ask this all the time. And the main thing is the first thing they can do is report it to the application that they're on, right? Because that's going to generate a cyber tip as well. It should, theoretically, right? The next thing that they can do is contact their local law enforcement to get the fastest response time, especially if it's something where they're seeing that their kid needs immediate resources. Getting law enforcement involved in the beginning is very imperative. Another way that they could also contact or notify someone is NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They can actually go up there and create their own cyber tip that will then get pushed out to the local jurisdiction. And I like to tell guardians and parents that these resources are available to them all the time. And why not tell as many people as you can instead of just waiting for one to come? It's okay to generate more than one cyber tip if that's what needs to happen to get your child some help.
And so at Cyber Tip, they could really report anything. My child's been exposed to pornography. Somebody has sent my child a nude picture. Or I found out that my child sexted and there's something out there that we're concerned about of my child. Should they be reporting all of this to the Cyber Tip line?
They absolutely can. I know that some families are leery about getting law enforcement involved. And I think it's really great that NCMEC has a Take It Down campaign where if it's something where their kid has self-produced and they don't want to get law enforcement involved, which is absolutely okay because it's their choice, then they can go up there and provide the hash, which is basically the thumbprint for that image or that video. And then NCMEC, with all their resources, will go and take it down. And so that's another way that they can kind of get what they want done without involving law enforcement if they feel comfortable.
And so, yes, so parents, that's the difference. If it's a self-produced image, all right, of a minor child, that is one way to deal with it without getting law enforcement involved. If it is dealing with an adult, and anything is out there, and particularly if your child has now gone missing, how important is it, Courtney, to get law enforcement involved right away?
Oh, absolutely. If it's something where a predator has reached out and they have the child, it's very important to get law enforcement involved as soon as possible because time matters, right? The
Yes.
longer that our child is away from us, the more we can't control what's happening to them. And so there's other resources that NCMEC provides. And for us, if you're in Virginia, the state police will provide, Amber Alerts, et cetera, to try to make sure we can get all hands on deck to try to get our children back. Yeah.
Right. And those are Amber Alerts. So the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, you can Google them. You can go to our site at internetsafety101.org. You can Google the Cyber Tip Line. So all you got to do is make the technology your friend, parents, and all the concerned adults out there. Now, what about keeping evidence? Let's talk about sextortion. Let's talk about cyberbullying, how important it is for a parent to keep evidence and for a kid not to erase something because they're scared to show the parent.
It is so important because that is the evidence. And we do see a lot of kids will try to delete things. And so if a parent is aware of something happening, they absolutely need to make sure they do not delete the application. Sometimes parents will see something and it turns their stomach. And so they just want to get rid of it. But if you want us to do something, we need you to save it. We need you not to, then talk to the predator and voice how upset you are or threatening them. You can block them and you can preserve that. You can take screenshots if you like, but you have to remember that any child sexual abuse material, it's a felony here in Virginia. And so we need to see that material. We need to see where it's at so we can follow the trail and bring justice to the family.
Right. And also online conversations with a predator. All of these are felonies in the United States of America. There is not a state where these are not crimes. So this is important for everyone listening. And if you're listening from overseas, most countries have laws that prohibit this. And these are crimes that are happening everywhere, aren't they, Courtney?
They are. And, that's why every state has an ICAC and we're all working together to try to move the needle and stay on top of this.
So let's talk about prevention. How do we keep our kids safe? We've talked about a lot of the dangers. How do we keep them safe? To start us off, Courtney, I'm just going to talk about a general rule of thumb that we put out there to parents, and that is to implement safety rules and software tools. What does that mean? Rules and tools. These are rules and tools for parents to follow. So the rules are the non-technical things that parents can do. The tools are the actual technology tools that we want you to turn on to help better protect your kids and manage their internet experience. So in the rules, we talked about one of the biggest ones, and that is keep lines of communication open and have conversations on a regular basis and build that atmosphere of trust, right, Courtney? So how early should parents be starting these conversations?
Absolutely, Donna. It is. Going online is a very personal decision for guardians and parents, and we have to let them make those decisions. But I do encourage that while the internet is providing valuable resources of education and just fun and connection with our friends and our family, we have to remember that it does come with risks like cyberbullying and exposure to inappropriate content. So I do think it's important for caregivers to talk to their kids about what is appropriate activity online and what's not, and what is okay and what's not okay. And then if they're faced with some content that makes them feel sad or scared or confused, they need to give their children the tools to be able to deal with that. And for me, I would say, go out there and tell your kids, if they see something that's inappropriate, they need to come and tell you, the trusted adult, whoever their trusted adult is. They need to know that they can block that content. They need to know that they can press the go back button, the X, to get out of it, because a lot of this stuff too, especially on platforms like YouTube, is the ads, right? It's something that they're watching something child appropriate, but then something about erectile dysfunction comes up. And, so having those conversations about, if something makes you feel sad, scared, or uncomfortable, then tell mommy, tell grandma, tell whoever, so that child can get help with dealing with that content.
Right, and in those kind of rules category, with social media, for instance, social media companies, they have terms of service. The child is not supposed to be under 13, but yet a kid can, lie about their age and these kinds of things. So it's really important for parents to set up your own house rules with your kids, what they can do and when. Now, since I'm the internet safety advocate and I'm not law enforcement, I'm going to just say we encourage parents not to give a smartphone to your child until they're at least in the 8th grade. There are other phones that they can use to call you, to call a trusted adult, or to call their friends, but they're not internet connected. As soon as they get internet connected, whether it's on a laptop or a smartphone or a gaming device, now it's up to you, the parent, to let them get all the good, but not get all the dangers and the bad. And that is a really overwhelming task. Now, if you're up for it, parent, then you got to be on top of it every single day, because your kids are going to be online every single day, right? Courtney, so let's just talk about some of the tools that parents should be using and turning on, and how important is monitoring and time controls and filtering.
Absolutely. Well, parents should absolutely set restrictions on devices and apps, and, be friends with be aware of the friends that are online with their children. So making sure they're checking and going down that list and saying, who's this person? Who's cutie pie 345? And have your child tell you. And then if it's somebody that you don't recognize, then block them, take them off of the friend list. Also checking social media, right? Like looking at the friends up there, because why is, a neighbor following a 13-year-old? We had a case recently where there was a neighbor that was trying to get his neighbor's son to send him a dick pic. So if we looked at the social media, we would know that they were absolutely having, and why was he following him? Why are they having these conversations? So if we're vigilant on the parent side or guardian side, we could catch that in advance. But also, we need to have these passwords. I tell all the parents that I talk to, passwords are for parents. And when something happens, that is not the time to ask the kid for a password, because if they don't want to tell you, they won't.
Right.
And so we need to have that beforehand. We need to know the passwords to the different applications and the gaming systems that they're on, and make sure that we're keeping up with those passwords and even testing those passwords to make sure they still work. And then the other thing I would just say quickly is that, maybe take a day, maybe it's going to be Wednesdays, to go through the device that your child has. During a commercial while you're watching the football game, or, any reality TV that you're watching on the commercials, sit down and go through and look at your child's device. That would be the best thing you could do, because, you are then looking at what's going on. And then also, if you can, I'm seeing a lot of parents have like an iPhone and the kid has Android. And so the parents aren't as familiar with the different devices. If you can, maybe everybody have the same so that you already have that knowledge and you're not going on an uphill battle when you're looking through their devices.
Yeah, that's a good point. And when your kids are of age and you decide to let them go on a social media app, it's always important to check out that app first. If you're going to let them on Instagram, go through Instagram. And in Instagram and many of these social media apps and gaming devices, they have parental control tools that we highly recommend you turn on. You turn on the filters, you turn on the parental control tools, you turn on notifications, you turn these things on. You can also set time controls on your actual device or on these apps and gaming devices. So we know it's a battle because these kids, I mean, these companies, social media in particular, they have set up algorithms to keep kids hooked and to keep this stuff highly addictive. So it's really important to have time controls on from a very early age. Anytime you let your kids have a device, whether it's internet connected or not, have those time controls and have them to be spending at least an equal amount of time outside and doing other kinds of play so they don't get so hooked on this technology. So turn on those time controls because that's going to help you, mom and dad. You know, they say time controls just you're knocked off the internet now. It's 9 o'clock at night and it's time to put the device away.
Oh, absolutely. And, I like to say devices should be in open spaces. If you can, parents and guardians, let them be in open spaces. Don't let them have them in their room, especially not at night. What do they need to, they should be sleeping and being prepared for the next day. So that is something else that I would absolutely recommend. And then Meta, they have a family center. And so you can try to maybe connect that way and monitor through that as well.
Yeah, and Meta's just rolled out a new set of tools now that they just announced last week. I was on the phone with the DC policy team, and it's really good. They're really improving, and a lot of these companies are. Sometimes it's because of groups like ours that are talking behind the scenes to them, but also putting some public pressure on them. And then government and our Congress, state laws and federal laws are still trying to catch up. We're all catching up, aren't we, Courtney? To get ahead of the criminals and the bad guys who are abusing and exploiting this technology. This is a question you said that you often get. How do I respect my child's privacy and monitor their online behavior at the same time?
Yeah, that is a big question I get very often. And, privacy is earned. Parents and guardians need to really reel that in, because if you just give your child the internet, then they have no guardrails, they can go anywhere. I think they should earn it. And so the one way to do that is through monitoring them and giving them the tools to be able to deal with if they're with a predator, or if a predator tries to reach out to them, that they know what to do. And as they start showing that they are responsible enough to handle this big responsibility, right? Then you give them a little bit more, but I don't think you just give it to them right out the gate. And the other thing I do with parents is you, Donna, you guys with enough.org. You guys have great resources up there, especially about gaming. And so I pass those out to all the parents as well. So I definitely suggest everybody check that out because it's a very good resource to kind of guide through the ins and outs of internet safety for children.
Thank you, Courtney. And also just to those who are listening, we have at internetsafety101.org, we've developed, and this is what Courtney was talking about, these little quick guides. So pornography, predators, gaming, social media, cyberbullying, where you can see what's the danger, what are the warning signs, what are some conversation starters, and then what do I do to prevent this? And we try to just cull it down into, it's kind of like the cliff notes, right, of internet safety, right, Courtney? So
Absolutely.
We're going to be wrapping up here in the next couple of minutes. What would you like to say as a final word to our listeners?
I would just like to say that, law enforcement, we are your friends. We are here. Our mission with the ICAC is to just protect children from online predators. And, it takes a community. We can't do it by ourselves. This is something that we all have to take up arms and come against. And, at the end of the day, we're here to help. Reach out if you ever need anything. And if there's any resources we can provide, we absolutely will send you in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Now, people are going to be listening from all over the country, and you're in Virginia. So they can call and get someone like you to come talk to their PTA or to a church group, right?
Absolutely. They absolutely can call their ICACs. And then also NCMEC is a very good resource, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They can go to ncmic.org, and they are able to also send out representatives to give internet safety talks and presentations.
That's great. That's great. So it's important, parents, again, to recognize that your kids are not immune. One thing I didn't say that's kind of in that rules category of dealing with your kids, and this is one of the hardest things as a parent and a grandparent, is when they come to you with something that is problematic. Maybe they've sent a nude, maybe someone sent them something, they're talking to a predator. One of the hardest things it is for parents is not to overreact, because when you do that, then the child is going to be less likely to come to you in the future. So just gear yourself up that you're going to listen, do your best not to overreact, and say, I love you, we're going to work through this together, and we're going to get through this, and applaud them for coming to you. Don't you agree, Courtney?
Absolutely. We have to comfort our children if they disclose this, because this is a tough situation and we all need each other to get through it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Courtney, for giving us your time today and for offering such amazing advice to us and to our audience. And thank you for fighting the good fight, fighting for all these kids out there and all the fellow law enforcement folks, not only in America and around the world. We thank you. Please share this podcast. Pass it on. Go to internetsafety101.org. Get our free newsletter. We'll keep you up to date every week. We are trying to stay on top of it so we can keep you on top of it. So thanks again. And just remember to be a good example. Follow the golden rule and teach your kids to do the same thing. Until next time, God bless y'all.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Internet Safety with Donna Rice Hughes, designed to educate, equip, and empower you to keep your children and family safe in the digital world. Until we talk again, have a beautiful and safe week.